What is crack-a-lackin', fellow thermonuclear AFers? I am Dan Valley coming at you with what will be a super quick intro. Just wanted to note that this is the second part of our Eastern Conference mailbag. So we did the Atlanta Hawks through the Indiana Pacers, I believe, in part one. Go check that out. It's on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. And now we're going to go through the Miami Heat up until, of course, the Washington Wizards. We will do the Western Conference next week. Thank you for everyone who has sent in questions. We do still need a question or multiple questions for the Los Angeles Clippers. We'll also take some on other teams. Join our Discord to get them in there. You can DM me on Twitter at Dan Valley. You can ask in the YouTube comments as well. If you're watching this, I will see them, find them. HardwoodKnocks on Twitter as well. So still room to get in some questions for the Western Conference if you've not submitted them already. If you've submitted questions already, we appreciate the people that have asked for multiple teams, especially when we were low on some other ones, and so you all stepped up. I really appreciate it. But we're hitting the second half of the East. This has been great. Keep the questions coming. This would be something that'd be fun to do every once in a while, but I had to work really hard to rally the questions. And I don't necessarily want to do that. I want you guys to just feel free to ask them. Or I guess if I'm sending out one solicitation, maybe the response will be a little bit more robust next time. Anyway, let's get to answering questions on the rest of the Eastern Conference, beginning with the Miami Heat and finishing, of course, with the Washington Wizards.
All right, let's move on to the Heat here. From Rubik's Gal. Heat, do we have to do this dance every year? We write them off at the beginning of the season, which I did. And here we are in March with Miami, a game and a half out of home court in the playoffs. And it's hardly the first time this has happened. Is it hubris? Do they just not give a shit until February? Is it careful planning? Refuse to believe it's coincidence that this happens every year. They're 11-3 as we're recording this since January 31st. What's up with the Heat? Like, is it just, so let me give you one thing before I cut you off the question I just asked you. I was writing about the Heat today, and I was just looking at like this offensive profile where they're bottom 10 in rim accuracy and attempt frequency, dead last in the league in location-based effective field goal percentage, and just still, and that's how they were last year too. And they still make it work. So like, what is it? I'm just rephrasing the question. Like, how is this continuing to happen?
First of all, I don't have a good answer other than when you're asking if this is deliberate, it absolutely is with Jimmy Butler. There's a different mode from him later in the season. He's shooting over 50% from three during this stretch on like 3 attempts per game, which is, for him, that's real volume. But there's other stuff that's happening. And I do think it's a trickle-down effect. Like Jaime Jaquez, he's healthier. That helps. But you look at this team, they're flying around on defense now, which is something they weren't doing at least as often, it felt like, for the first 2/3 of the season or whatever. Bam Adebayo, he's hitting, still really can't hit. I call them true mid-rangers. Like he's shooting during the stretch like under 20% from true mid-range, but he's at 57+% on in the paint twos that aren't in the restricted area. That's like an 8 percentage point increase over where he was beforehand. So there are things that are happening, but is all the Duncan Robinson playmaking, by the way. So it's like, oh, this guy just does stuff inside the arc and he's hitting threes and now he's a playmaker. He's just averaging 5 assists per game. I don't know how much of it's still, is it, Coach Spo, just, I'm not going to break out my best shit until we get into March / the end of February. I don't have answers here other than if it's a trickle down effect from Jimmy Butler. I get, like, he's very clearly, the flip the switch conversations become a cliche, but we went through this during their playoff run last year. I honestly think there's just some extraterrestrial shit at play. We can point to the numbers and what they're doing differently. I can't explain it to you why it's not, and you can't point to like any transaction. Like, this is not about getting DeLon right. This is not like Terry Rozier's been injured and banged up. And when he's been playing, they weren't even using him like everyone thought they were going to use him. It was, oh, look, Terry Rozier's setting all these screens. And it's like, well, that's not really what I thought was going to happen. So I apologize to anyone who was hoping for some insight into this, but you talk about wanting to know what's going on in the Bulls front office. I need to fucking know what's going on behind the scenes in Miami with those conversations. And if this is just like a contrived effort to lull us into a false sense of, I wrote them off because I don't want to go when people ask me on the radio, on podcasts, I don't want to say, well, This is what the Heat do. They flip a switch. I'm going to do that now. I'm not going to point to the numbers or anything I've watched. Like, this is just going to happen. And I'm going to keep saying it even as Jimmy Butler gets to his 40th birthday, apparently, because this is just going to continue to happen.
You know what the weirdest thing about all this is that, like, when you think of the Heat, you think of the really disciplined, like, don't take plays off, really like rigid, militaristic, whatever. Like, that isn't the type of team that flips switches late in the year, in theory, right? That doesn't make any sense. It's totally opposite for what happens. And you would think, like, oh, they're going to overachieve from day one, if in fact they're going to overachieve. But instead, it's like, no, they're all those things, super serious, like, practice really hard, max effort, but then also like try harder and do better for some reason later in the year. So they're coasting. Like, I don't understand. It doesn't make any sense.
Do you think that this could be, and again, with Jimmy Butler, it's just it's a decision. I've just decided it's a decision when it comes to Jimmy Butler. But because they always seem to wind up being reliant on either like a buyout type guy with a Kevin Love, or just these younger guys who are in the program, whether they were draft picks or not. And so it's like, well, look at what Haywood Highsmith, and look at how far Nikola Jovic has come now. And now Caleb Martin is healthier than he was at the beginning of the year. So it does always feel like they're dealing with that stuff. Could that be like a reasonable explanation of younger guys are getting better and other guys are getting healthier?
I guess, maybe. Sure.
Okay.
Like, let's go with that. It's better than, like, I don't know, shrug, #Heat culture. That's why. At least you got something there.
I do. Why did they sign Patty Mills? Like, they have DeLon. I know that there's like DeLon Wright, Terry Rozier, and Patty Mills.
I don't know. I don't know why they did that, Dan. But my very first thought when I saw that was like, oh shit, I bet Patty Mills has still got something. That's my first thought.
Gonna win them at least 2 playoff games.
He will come in, catch a heater, make 4 threes, and just pump everyone up. And then, that's exactly what's going to happen. Of course, that's what's going to happen. All right, related Heat question. I would also like the answer to some of a counter question. Will the Heat ever stop with the whole quote, we have culture and we'll just grind in the playoffs a bit and swing for a star? They could have probably won a ring recently if they had done so, in my opinion. Seems like every offseason the Heat are linked to being a team, a preference of a star, like Dame. That's my insertion there, on the move. Then lowball and act shocked they don't get anyone, and then act like they don't need them. Damn, that's on a tee for you. What are your thoughts?
I have thoughts on this. So I don't think they're ever going to give up the culture shtick. And I do agree that it's annoying, Austin. Like, that's just, I had a joke once when they were in the bubble. And do you remember that there was a rule that you needed clearance to get like certain people in the bubble? Like, when the playoffs and there were certain teams that were there, you were allowed to bring people in, but they needed like clearance. And so I made a joke that Jimmy Butler called Adam Silver and asked if his will to win needed clearance to enter the bubble. And like, that's very much the Heat persona. And it can be annoying. I find it comical a lot of the time, but like, it seems to work in the postseason. But my issue here, and I understand the question, what opportunity have they actively decided not to pursue or engage? And so it's, when you look at Dame specifically, he wanted to go to Miami. Do we really believe that they offered 1 first-round pick in Tyler Hero, and that's just where they drew the line? And so I think that Portland just went with an offer they deemed better. And it's the same case with, they did not have the assets to outbid for Donovan Mitchell if you thought he was the guy. So who have they actively missed out on that they could have gotten, is my question. And during this run, by the way, they've made Eastern Conference Finals. They've made the NBA Finals. And so I don't think this shtick has cost them a title. If anything, it's probably because of the question that Rubik's Gal just asked, and we did not provide an answer to, by the way. I fully recognize that we just talked in circles for 8 minutes or whatever it was.
There is no answer. Don't apologize.
Well, I'm not apologizing. I'm just stating a fact. Okay. We didn't have the answer to it. If that's what they're doing and that's what gets them to where they've been, then it's helped them get closer. I just, like, now we could talk about, okay, was trading a 2027 first round pick for Terry Rozier the move? And now we can get into that conversation. I just don't know what other moves were available with the assets, because clearly there's a disconnect between how some people value Tyler Hero and then how the league values Tyler Hero. And so if he's not considered that blue chip type of asset on his current deal, what are they doing? And now it's even harder pressed because their salary matching is Tyler Hero or Duncan Robinson. And that, so if you're saying, well, if they would have put Jaime Jaquez on the table and gotten Dame, maybe they could have done that. Let's say they could have done that. Dame has not had the best season.
Yeah.
Are we just to assume that he would have been better off in Miami when he says the biggest struggle has been living without his family? I'm not going to assume that.
No, I think this isn't the Danny Ainge Celtics. This is like that kind of feels like what this criticism is of, like, it's like a joke. Oh, well, we were close. We were in on this guy. We were in on that guy. We didn't do it. The difference is, like, the reason the Heat don't always have the best package is because they're always aggressive. They're the team that's giving up the first for Terry Rozier. They're the team that's like, they're always like, if a star becomes available, I think people fear the Heat because they're like, those guys are, Pat Riley is cutthroat. They'll go for that guy. They will try to do it. They don't always have the best package, unlike, say, the Ainge Celtics, because they just didn't have a bunch of picks and stuff from, I don't know what the original Brooklyn Nets trade, the Garnett and Pierce stuff. But, like, I think the Heat are really seriously in on every star that becomes available. They just don't always have all the assets because they're aggressive, like, on a smaller scale very frequently, like giving, what was it, like, didn't they, Goran Dragic gave up a first for him or whatever, Kyle out, like, they're always out there trying to get guys. It's not that they're like punting on going to get someone and that's costing them titles. I think if anything, maybe they're too aggressive sometimes, like, because they're always trying to win now. There's like not a tomorrow for them. So it's a different kind of, like, they miss out on guys for like maybe the right reasons because they're always trying to be better. I don't know.
And also, I think they miss out on guys because they end up, like Dame. I'm sure they wanted Dame. They just ended up not having the best package for Dame.
Right, because they made other trades before that. Like, they just didn't have the asset trove.
So we're on to the Bucks, and I'll loop these two questions together. The first of which, so we have two. One from Dylan Payne plus, will Doc Rivers still be good after 3 wins in the second round? And then Austin, will the Bucks go for the impossible and have 4 coaches on the payroll if they are a first round out this year? I don't. If they get exited in the first round, they're keeping Doc Rivers, right? They've been unafraid to change things, but I'd be fairly. And maybe the reason they won't have 4 coaches on the payroll is because Mike Budenholzer gets a job, and I don't know if that offsets in any way. So I'm going to say no. There's no way that they fire Doc Rivers.
I think even if it's clear that they should fire Doc Rivers, which is not off the table, they won't.
I will say, though, they have. So since he's been in, they're up to 6th in points allowed per possession under Doc. That's up from 18th beforehand. Beforehand, they were 19th in opponent transition frequency and 28th in just transition defense. They're now 4th under Doc. And when you watch them, they're doing a much better job getting back on misses. And even in the half court, forcing opponents to work deeper into the shot clock overall. There's better ball containment somehow they played a little bit more aggressively. They're actually forcing turnovers now. So that probably leads into their ball containment without getting a ton of different personnel. Like, they have Patrick Beverley. That's like the main difference from before. So that's encouraging. I still think there's offensive awkwardness, and that's something that could come back to bite them when you're looking at if Middleton's banged up and are Giannis and Dame, are they in sync? They need to operate sort of independent of one another, even when they're on the court together. That's probably my biggest concern. And then it's, can this defense hold up in the playoffs when teams are going to have extra time to game plan around them? I do think, though, given the injuries in Cleveland and in Philly and in New York, I think we have to just default to the Bucks. And this might have always been the case. They're the second biggest threat to come out of the East, right?
100%.
Or is it Miami? We just finished talking about, is it Miami?
Miami's in its own special group. But I've told someone today, like, Boston's a lock, obviously. If you're talking, just pick the conference finals today. Boston's a lock. And I got to the point now where it's like, if Milwaukee's not there, I think I'm pretty surprised. If it's not Boston, Milwaukee in the East finals, I'm surprised. To your point, though, the defense has looked better with Doc. All the numbers are there. The offense has been worse. And, like, it's almost kind of one of those things of, like, well, do we give the small sample caveat for the offense, but not the defense? Like, or are we going to say they both are meaningful or neither is meaningful? Because you kind of can't have it both ways. And the Giannis Dame stuff, to me, is like the defining issue for this team down the stretch of, like, can we get some 2-man chemistry? Can we get some pick and roll stuff going? Because Dame and Brook Lopez have actually had some good moments as a pick and roll tandem, or at least with Lopez setting the screens way out high. So Dame gets downhill from the logo and like that works. Giannis just, the chemistry is not there. And the Bucks as a team, so it's fine when Dame keeps the ball in the pick and roll. I was pulling some play-by-play data earlier today. Milwaukee scores at a rate that ranks in the 13th percentile when the roll man finishes plays. Like they suck with the roll man. And like in theory, Giannis should be the most
role guy though, right?
Man. What's that?
They don't really have a true role guy though.
Why isn't Giannis a great role guy? All he does is rumble to the basket, just like give him a head start with the ball. This should be like the easiest thing in the world. It's clearly not. Giannis himself is a 57th percentile pick and roll man scorer. So like he's better than average, but like it's insane to me that like this is, if they can't get a Dame Giannis 2-man game going, like I like one or the other of them is just like broken as an offensive player. Cause you have a spacing center, Brook Lopez, assuming Middleton's out there and Beasley, like there's no one in the lane. Like it should be super easy. This is so, and nobody likes to spam pick and rolls more than Doc Rivers. Like he's coached Chris Paul and Blake Griffin. He coached James Harden and Joel Embiid. Like he knows how to do this. So I think that for me, if he can figure out this pick and roll combo and just make it the staple of the Bucks postseason offense, like the sky's the limit if he can make it work. And I like his odds, but it's concerning to me that it hasn't happened yet. So that I had those numbers and I wanted to throw them out there for this conversation.
This dates back pre-Doc though. I wonder how much of it too comes down to, and he's actually been worse under Doc when you're looking at like what he's doing as a driver. I'm talking about Damian Lillard, but like the 3-point shooting has been weird all year. He's at 32.3% on catch and shoot threes. On combined open and wide open threes, he's at like 36.5%. That's not like good for wide open threes and being Damian Lillard.
Right.
So it's just, and the other thing I'm wondering, so you mentioned like the Giannis Dame pick and roll. Do you think there's room, or do you just think that this is not something that's going to materialize for like the inverted stuff with them? Where it's like, let's have Dame screens for Giannis and what happens? Or is that just like sort of I'd be curious to see I don't know the data on it. I don't know how often it's been used. I'd hazard that has not been used very often, but like, Is it worth and what I keep hearing is like, yeah, like whenever Doc kind of alludes to it or people are talking about, like, yeah, Doc Rivers wants to like do this stuff. It's like, well, then why isn't it happening?
Bro, I don't know. That's the question. I think of course you should use it because the inverted pick and roll has worked fairly well with Middleton and Giannis. Like that was kind of a go-to thing. They would go both, Middleton as the ball handler and Giannis setting a screen was like kind of a staple for some of those really good Bucks teams. And they could invert it and get Giannis going downhill or force weird choices on switches and stuff. Like, I don't know. It's an oversimplification. Like Doc Rivers has forgotten more about basketball than either of us will ever know, but it's like, get your two best players involved and force a little guy to figure out what to do with a big guy on defense. Like that should just be, they should spam it all the rest of this year and just see if it's going to work. Cause like, if it doesn't work, then I don't really think the Bucks can score enough to even scare the Celtics. But if it does work, then like that's tough because Boston, it's going to challenge.
If there's a team if there's a team that could neuter even the best version of the Bucks, though, it's Boston.
Well, that's true of everybody. Like Boston's going to be the biggest challenge. Certainly, anyone in the East faces.
We are on to the New York Knicks. We have 2 questions for them. First one, this is. Oh, what is it? Noah. I apologize if I just have this written down wrong. Will the Knicks ever be fully healthy again? Dude, I don't know. They're so banged up. Like the Jalen Brunson injury, they averted disaster. That's great. But now, so you have OG out, you have Julius Randle out, Mitchell Robinson out. We know Isaiah Hartenstein is dealing with the Achilles stuff. Of course, I don't know if I already said the Jalen Brunson stuff. And then it's like, well, Josh Hart is playing 49 out of 48 minutes a game. Are we tempting fate here with him and some of these other guys? Deuce McBride, when Jalen Brunson went down, he played every minute. Like Jalen Brunson had, 43 seconds or 37 seconds, and then Deuce McBride just played every single second after it. I will say it's wild, and I don't think enough is being made of it, that the Knicks are just missing 4 of their would-be starters. That's a lot. That's a lot. That's 80.
That's almost the most starters you can be missing. It's pretty close.
So it's good that they avoided disaster with the Jalen Brunson injury. The Mitchell Robinson injury matters, but I honestly think at this point for him to come back, there's a chance that he could do more damage to their offense than good for them overall defensively. And I really like Isaiah Hartenstein. Do you not trust him to play a ton of minutes, especially with the Achilles injury? I get it. I'm looking at the OG and the Randle stuff because the OG has been like, oh, okay, there's a ramp up and he'll be back by the end of the season. But when? We don't have like he underwent elbow surgery. That doesn't seem like unserious. And so what does he look like when he comes back on the offensive end? Like, yeah, his defense should still be fine, but is he going to be able to knock down threes? The cutting element will still be there, but if he has less 3-point gravity, where he didn't have, by the way, yeah, he's shooting 39% from 3 as a Knick, but under 5 attempts per 36 minutes isn't some intense volume. And then it's the Randle thing, which we have a question on Randle in a second. What does he come like? He's dealing with an injury where it comes back and it's all right. So is he going to eventually need surgery on it? And how is he shooting with it? Like it just, or playing with it? Is he able to be as physical? Because a lot of the stuff he does inside the arc requires physicality. Or is there a chance that he's just still done for the season and we don't know about it just yet? Because by the way, the last like real update I think we got from them said he needs to be reevaluated in 3 weeks. That was like 4 or 5 weeks ago. And we haven't really gotten a concrete update, I don't think, unless I missed it. They're not going to be fully healthy again this season. I think that's been pretty clear. It's the bigger question is, to what extent will they still be injured when the playoffs roll around? Because this is a team that I might have even called them the biggest threat to the Celtics in the East if they were fully healthy. And I even said if Robinson doesn't come back or isn't the same, they'll be fine. Now it's the point where, all right, are they still a team that's going to win a playoff round? You need Jalen Brunson for sure. I think Jalen Brunson and OG Anunoby and probably Dante DiVincenzo at this point. Those are like the 3 players you just can't afford to lose.
You want to guess how many possessions? So obviously their presumptive starting 5 with Robinson in there and Brunson, DiVincenzo, OG, and Randle has not played together at all. Do you want to guess how many possessions those 4 guys have played sans Randle or sans Robinson?
I'm going to say under 150. So I'll say 117.
374, which is still like vanishing.
That's like Tibbs. I didn't factor that in. That's
Tibbs is going to max out whatever. We cannot pin this on Tibbs, right? I love that the whole thing always wears his players down. Oh, it's just bad luck. But yeah, I think it's kind of interesting. I think like whatever happens in the playoffs for the Knicks, they're going to get a pass. I think if they get bounced in the first round and just as everyone barely gets back, I don't think it's going to be, this is a failure. It's just like, yeah, shitty luck, man. Like everybody got hurt. What do you want? But then that doesn't make their offseason decisions all that much easier, which I think the next question kind of pertains to with Julius Randle.
Yeah. So this is interesting from, is 8-7 New York. Randle if Randle isn't healthy again for the playoffs and we just don't know how to value him this summer is basically the question. My response to this is, yeah, that's tough. Because it's another built-in excuse for Julius Randle. He has in his 2 playoff runs with the Knicks, 46.2 true shooting, which is just disastrously low, especially when that player, you look at his usage in those postseasons, is 29.2 as an average. And it was lower last year because Jalen Brunson existed. There were built-in excuses. He was banged up during both of them. And in 2021, he was their number 1 option. And Julius Randle's your number 1 option in the playoffs. I'm not trying to insult Julius Randle. That's when let's frame it this way. RJ Barrett was your number 2 that year. Was Elfrid Payton might have been starting games in the playoffs, or did they get away from that in the playoffs? I can't even remember.
I don't either.
So the team wasn't perfect and he was banged up. Last year, he was just visibly injured. And so there's the built-in excuse. And they did start Elfrid Payton in some playoff games. So I was correct on that. And then this year, he's going to be injured again if he's back. He has like this banged up shoulder. So if he comes back, my expectations for him in the playoffs offensively are just going to be low. But the extension eligibility is weird. They can extend him for a starting salary around, I think it's like 41.3 million off. He has 2 years left on his deal, one of which is a player option. Given what you know about Randle, what he's done in the playoffs, his value to the team though, would you extend him, Grant? If that's on the table, and I'm assuming you wouldn't give him the full boat, even though that's not even technically his max salary, but you're not going to give him the 40+ million. Is there a number where you would look at and say, no, we'll extend Julius Randle? Like I would do it. Or are you looking at it as, I prefer kind of the short-term salary optionality for matching via trades?
So I think normally what you should do is try to extend him for what you're talking about, salary matching, like whether, because right now he's on the books next year for 27.5, player option for 29.4 in 25-26. So if you want to extend him out just to sort of juice the value of him as a trade chip for whatever the next big piece you're going to go after, I think in a vacuum, you might do that. I would do it maybe, not starting at 41, 30 maybe, because you're pricing in the injuries, you're pricing what you know about his playoff viability. The problem is, I don't know how valuable Randle is. I think we've talked about this a little bit in the past. Like, he's certainly not as valuable to other teams as he is to the Knicks. So, like, having him on the books at a number that makes sense for the Knicks as like, well, it makes sense to have him on the roster for 30 million a year or whatever, scale that up however you want to. I don't know if other teams would view it the same way. Like, oh, that's a big, we value him at the same dollar amount. So if he's a trade chip, like it just doesn't quite square up to me, if that makes any sense. So like, I think my path going forward would just be like, we're not talking extension. You're guaranteed on the books next year. You've got that player option. If you play well enough next year to decline it and hit free agency, awesome. That means you had a great year for us in 25, 26, or I'm sorry, in 24 or 25. But I'm not going out a long way, and I'm certainly not going up into the 40s for Randle.
It's interesting because to the Knicks specifically, if you can get him at a reasonable number, it's more valuable to extend him. But
Right.
to other teams, it is less valuable to extend him because he's going to be more valuable as that short-term salary matching. And some teams might even view it as an expiring contract,
So
like
that's
over the summer because of that player option.
Do you think he's more valuable if we're talking strictly as a trade chip? Because let's say the best version of the next Knicks team has some other star in there with Anunoby and Brunson and whatever. Is he more valuable as an expiring $27 million contract or whatever than he would be if he had 2 more years on that?
The answer is yes, because the team that you're acquiring said player from is probably not going to be on a Julius Randle timeline. And then you just said, and as we've talked about, he's such a very specific fit. He's a 2-time All NBA player. And if you want to say he shouldn't have made it he's an All NBA player. Like that is a thing that happened and that he deserved
2 times
at least once. Yeah, but he did it 2 times. And by the way, if he never got hurt, like there's a chance he would have been in the discussion again this year.
Totally.
So, but he's such a specific fit that even if you were viewing it as, well, we'll reroute him, I don't think that it's not going to be the same. The number would have to, even if he was at the same number where it was, the average annual value is 30 million, let's say. So he's barely getting a raise off of that player option number. I just don't think you could count on netting a haul. And so as a team that's rebuilding, presumably in this situation, I would prefer the flexibility of knowing this money comes off the books or that we could use it as another short-term salary matching to say, hey, we'll take back money you don't want or something to that effect. That's my belief. And I feel pretty shitty saying about a 2-time All-NBA player who's in his prime. I just think that's the reality.
I'm with you on that. All right. Orlando Magic. This is from Lee Mortensen. My I's and L's are hard to tell the difference between. Can Jalen Suggs be a better shooting Marcus Smart, or do we need a point guard 3-and-D player? I'm glad this is for you and not me because I've flip-flopped on Suggs pretty hard. So you've always been a little more sober on him.
So I've kind of wondered this. I'm not sure if Marcus Smart's the apt comparison anymore because I think that I trust Jalen Suggs' jumper, and I also more so trust Jalen Suggs to play within the limits of himself. And part of that is because the Magic do have other options, even when it comes to running point guard. And the Celtics at times are very much like, no, like Marcus Smart's got to be our primary pick and roll initiator, and he's going to turn the ball over 25% of the time, but that's the risk you run. I think, so maybe the environment helps out Suggs here, but you know what the comp I feel like might be better? Like, could this be someone who turns into a Derek White type player? Needs to come a long way as a passer, but that's what I see. And I'm not talking about like physically, but I'm just in terms of the gaps that they fill. It's where, no, you don't want Jalen Suggs running your offense, but you don't really want Derek White running your offense, but he's still going to drop dimes and keep the ball moving. Suggs could do that. He's not going to try and ISO a shit ton. But like he can do some stuff on the ball when he gets moving. And then he also could just move a crap ton off the ball. Now, is Jalen Suggs the same level of screener as Derek White? that's what we get into. But I do feel like Jalen Suggs has the potential to turn into that player when we're specifically looking at his defense and his complementary 3-point shooting. He's not going to have, I mean, Derek White doesn't have like necessarily a ton of gravity, even when you look at his 3-point splits. I just feel like that's the type of player you want Suggs to turn into. And I believe, again, I don't know how to feel about the passing and the connective passing and the screening. I think he could get there on one of those fronts, though, for sure. And so I don't think you need to try and upgrade from the Jalen Suggs spot unless you view, and this might be stepping on the toes of the next Magic question, but unless you view like you're viewing, oh no, Jalen Suggs like needs to be our point guard. No, that's not a long-term thing.
No, I don't. I mean, he's still, though, vastly improved as a shooter, which is like now he's going to stay in the league, which is like, before before the shooting stuff, before the shooting happened, I was like, what is this guy? Because Chris Dunn has
first
like
team all defense. That's what
right.
it is.
But let's talk about Chris Dunn has like barely hung on. Like he's bounced around. He's a minimum guy. Jalen Suggs is kind of Chris Dunn, except that now Jalen Suggs can shoot. And so like that has changed his outlook as like his career outlook entirely, and has changed what he means to the Magic. I love Chris Dunn, by the way. Suggs though, like he's still.
Why didn't you love Jalen Suggs then? Why didn't you love Jalen Suggs before he was Derek White 2.0?
He's not, well, if Jalen Suggs becomes Derek White, the Magic are real scary. But that is a better comp than Smart, just to get back to the question too, because Smart's value was like, I'm gonna guard a center for a few possessions. Like Suggs is not that guy. And Suggs is not like flying into the stands after being touched, to like grift fouls. Like Marcus Smart is an elite all-time.
They turned on the central air in the arena, and Marcus Smart's like in the 8th row,
an all-time foul grifter. Like, and I say that as with respect. Like he's just, it's performance art. How good Smart was.
Grant's like, with all due respect, proceeds to disrespect.
Yeah, I still think. You know what? We are just going to step on this one a little bit, but like I think you need just a true point guard type, and then Suggs can come in and whether he's going to guard the 1 or the 2, or whether he's going to run second units or just be a spot up guy. Like there's a lot of ways you can use Suggs going forward, which is great because I didn't think there were going to be any ways that you could use him, and I was wrong about that. This is from Rubik's Scout. Can Markelle Fultz's post moves help them survive in today's NBA in the absence of a convincing outside shot? Can he be part of a Magic future that involves playoff aspirations?
The answer is no. No. So Fultz is shooting 53.8% on post-ups this year per second spectrum. That's a good number, especially for a guard. It's not super high volume, though. Can you up that more? I just don't. Maybe it's because I'm viewing this too in Orlando Magic terms. But like they don't have, and I think what Jacques Vaughn has done a good job. When you watch them, like they have good spacing on the court. But the defensive spacing is a lot different in comparison to the offensive spacing because no one cares about the people that are spacing the floor in Orlando. And so if you're going to use Markelle Fultz in the post, I think you're going to need better shooters and better motion around him. And then there's also the level of, and if you're putting the ball into his hands, it's out of the hands of Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner. That's like, so if we're talking about on another team, maybe. I don't know, but I don't know what team that is. For the Orlando Magic specifically, I don't think he's a bad player, but if he is part of the next great Orlando Magic team, I think he's coming off the bench. Like that's like I can't, like he's not, the starting point guard, or he's not, even forget about the actual role. He's not closing games. He's not playing a ton of minutes. Like that's the next iteration of the Magic. I just don't think you would have to put so much like shooting around him. And then again, it's just, even then there's limits to what Paolo Banchero is probably ever going to do as a shooter, even though that's true. Like you don't want to displace Paolo Banchero from the ball. And so you need someone who can play off the ball more effectively than Markelle Fultz can, I think, in Orlando is where I'm at.
Yeah. It's just like, you can get away with having like a weakness in your game. A point guard who is best on the ball cannot be like a non-threat to score. And like, I get it, like cool post-up game, how good you have to be as a post and like, upper paint player as a point guard. You have to like to succeed as that, like that's your offensive bread and butter. Not saying this is the case for this guy, but like you got to be Jalen Brunson good. Now Brunson can do a million other things, but like you got to be Jalen Brunson in the mid post. If Fultz is going to have offensive value, Like he's got to be that good. He's not that good. Like basically nobody is. Nobody does what Brunson does at that position.
And I
so
will say, like, his drop offs that, like, in terms of efficiency from mid range this year he's dealt with injuries. He's only played, he played in 25 games or whatever it is absolutely, if that's like a thing that sticks, that is absolutely jarring and then gutting for his functional value.
He's shooting 11% from three, and he's like his career 27%. Like find me a guard that has been in a major role on a team that is going to be as good as Orlando wants to be with that. Like that's an oversimplification, but like that doesn't work. You can't do it. You can't do it. Like in the modern NBA, you cannot be. So I think he would be. I would be surprised if he has a major, like a bench role, even, like 15 minutes a night on the best version of this Magic team in the next couple of years. Just because, like, I think you hit on it, especially if he's got the ball and is scoring, like that's just such a low expected value proposition, compounded by the fact that you're taking opportunities away from your better offensive players. Like, so he's a good defender, he's a good passer, but like he has no off-ball value whatsoever. And that really, to get all the way back to what we said about the Magic forever, that's what their guards need to have, is off-ball value. If you want Banchero and Wagner to be running your offense a lot of the time, the guards, your conventional backcourt players who'd normally be distributing, have to be able to hit shots, and Fultz can't do it. So it's just kind of, I don't know. It seems fairly straightforward to me.
Yeah, and he is averaging 1.2 field goal attempts per game as a spot-up shooter. His effective field goal percentage in these situations is 30.6. He's yielding 0.63 points per spot-up possession. That is in the 4th percentile. And I recognize that, like, this is the extreme, but he was in the 25th percentile last year, and he was in the 30th percentile the year before that. And the volume has just been, he had 2.3 attempts as the spot-up guy last year. And it's just, now, could he be someone? I just feel like this has never been his game. Has he ever been in the environments where it could be? He's not going to be like a super great cutter, and you probably need to be a little bit more laterally explosive than he is. He did average last season 1.41 points per possession as a cutter, and so if you can generate enough space, if that's what you're trying to use Markelle Fultz as, I just don't see it. And maybe we're missing something. So people can feel free to get at us. If he's going to be like, can he use use post touches to sort of shift his value or increase it? It's to me, anyways, definitely not happening in Orlando.
No, not seeing it.
That would bring us to what are we up to? Oh, the Philadelphia 76ers. So the question I have is from someone who is remaining anonymous, wishes to remain anonymous. Can Paul Reed and Mo Bamba prevent the Sixers from entering the play-in? And the follow-up question to that is it even worth having Joel Embiid come back this season?
Bad news, they're in the play-in as we're recording this. They have slipped to 7th, and we've just lauded the Heat. Maybe the Knicks join them down there if they can't get healthy ever. But no, I do not think Mo Bamba and Paul Reed can keep him out of the play-in. I know that's like a tongue-in-cheek question. Just kind of a bummer all the way around. The more interesting one, we haven't talked about this. Should Embiid bother coming back this year? I think probably, because on the off chance that he is still like the MVP version of himself coming back from a meniscus injury, which is an off chance, like it's not likely, then don't you have a puncher's chance, I guess, of making the conference finals, and who knows what happens? I mean, like, because if you say no, he shouldn't come back and play at all, you're punting. And like the idea of punting when you have an MVP like in or around his prime, just like doesn't sit right with me. But I wouldn't put it past Daryl Morey and the Sixers to just, they've talked on and off about like, well, we're trying to do it this year, but also position ourselves for the offseason to add another star. So they have kind of had an eye towards the, more distant future, or I guess, midterm future, I guess. But I think if Embiid can come back and play, he probably should, just because maybe you make a deep run. I don't know. What do you think?
I think he should, and it's not really about that, because I think that this team is just cooked for the playoffs. If he comes back and he's just Joel Embiid, okay, fine. He hasn't been Joel Embiid like any postseason he's ever been in for the entire postseason.
So what would be the difference if he was hobbled?
Right. So I think you want him to come back. So, okay, can we get an idea of what Buddy Hield, Tyrese Maxey, and Joel Embiid look like together? That's
Yeah.
more important information to me. I know they have cap space this summer, and a lot of people are kind of trolling it by saying, well, who are they going to sign in free agency? Just re-sign Tobias Harris? I'll repeat what Keith Smith's gift says from Spotrac. Cap space doesn't need to be used on free agents. It can help facilitate trades in a big way. They could bring back some of their own guys, like a Melton, like a Buddy Hield, and still have a shit ton of cap space because of Tyrese Maxey's low cap hold. So I think it would be great to get some information on what that 3-man combination could look like. I don't know how valuable that is because then you're talking about Embiid is hobbled. You're not getting a lot of practice time anyway, but it's still better than working with a net zero sum of information. Now, what I will say is the Sixers do have their own draft pick this year. So
boy.
And as you said, they are in the play-in as we speak. If they were really looking to like try and just I guess they can't do this because Tyrese Maxey's camp would be pissed that they would cost him all NBA eligibility at some point, or is he already hit 65 games? You get Tyrese Maxey to 65 games, even though if you benched him, you'd be costing him all NBA consideration. I don't think he makes it anyway, to be honest with you, but he has played in 55. Okay, so yeah. But could they, like, if they wanted like a real epic just run of trying to increase value, could they drop past the Atlanta Hawks maybe? There's 7 losses ahead of them, probably not. So
that'd be tough.
Embiid might as well, because Trae Young's injured in Atlanta too.
Yeah.
Even though some people think like
right. Well, they're better without him.
So I think he should come back. I just don't view them as a serious threat in the playoffs if he is back, not because I don't think Joel Embiid is a great player. Just I can't envision him being Joel Embiid in the playoffs if he's coming back with 5 games to play or whatever in the regular season.
Yeah. It's sad.
That was the only question we had on this. Do you have any thoughts on just their cap space plan? Like, they're one of the most fascinating teams to watch this summer, I think, for sure.
Well, as you were talking, like the thing that Keith said keeps ringing in my ears. Like, I wonder if this is, this would be very much like a Morey thing of like being out ahead of a trend and realizing that, like, yeah, cap space, these free agents suck. Like, Tobias Harris coming back is not like a value add. We're just getting back to neutral. That's maybe not the point. Maybe the Sixers realize, like, the second apron stuff, what's going to happen is teams are really going to want to shed money, like, badly. And they might be willing to pay through the nose to shed money. And if we are able to take money on, that space is way more valuable than it's ever been before. Like, we could ask for a lot because I don't know what the specifics would need to be, but it's like,
well, let's just say that Lors and Rodriguez get their tax bill for next season. Like, whoa.
Yeah. It's like,
and Jay McDaniels, come on down.
Well, or just like, hey, Warriors, hey, Clippers, hey, this just throwing out teams that are going to be second apron teams. Hey, Wolves, how many firsts will you give us to take on Karl Anthony Towns? Like, because what if it's like, yeah, our tax bill, we're this much into the second apron, we're getting our picks frozen, and we're going to pay like $200 million in tax or whatever it is, just some insane number, like, there's a world where suddenly these huge money contracts, like, teams would actually maybe pay to get off of them. That's not crazy, depending on like ownership, depending on how big that tax bill is. I mean,
the Wolves are not giving up for anyone.
No,
I know you.
Of course not.
They're not giving first again. But as you mentioned, I'm defending you. I'm saying Grant was clearly joking. There'd be someone in the YouTube comments be like, "You've never watched a Timberwolves game this season." So, like, yeah, could you wind up getting a Norman Powell because the Clippers decided to attach a first-round pick to him? Or you mentioned the Warriors. It'd be really funny, like, would they grease the wheels of an Andrew Wiggins?
Yeah, right.
So I didn't really think about it in those terms.
I think
you know what the one is? And I'm not saying there'd be a pick attached, but what if the Celtics just get juiced in the second round or something? It's like Jalen Brown buy. It's not even you're great, but we can't pay for this team.
Right.
Like, you just
right. Our payroll and taxes is $500 million, and we don't have any picks anymore. And we're totally screwed by all the second apron rule. Like, I think there is a good chance that smart and good teams are clearing cap space with the idea of, like, we're entering an environment where we've never been able to get more with our cap space because teams are so will be so motivated to get off of contracts that maybe aren't even actually like objectively bad. They're just bad for the team that they're on because they've got all these other obligations that puts them in the second apron. I don't know.
That's it. I didn't think about it that way. I thought about it more as just like they don't have to give up as much value to get players they want because they're saving teams so much money. That's an extension of that, but that's a really good.
That's a more extreme version of what you're saying. It's like it might even be you get paid to take on a contract as opposed to like the price is lower that
I'm trying to think of just among the teams that are going to be in the second apron either this summer, like, or coming up. Maybe they want to get out in front of it, by the way, where it's what if a player's number is just smaller to move now? Like Carl Towns would have been an example at the trade deadline because his salary is about to skyrocket. I don't think there's really anyone else out there. Like, who's the best player you could envision just getting moved for either nothing or like, is it Zach LaVine?
I don't know why there was the market was barren. You'll recall.
No, what was it? A desolate
hellscape. That's what it was. All right. Well, that was fun. Yeah, look, we broke new ground on the Sixers being early adopters of the value of cap space. Toronto Raptors from Go Sports Go. How close are the Raptors to top 8 and what exactly do they need to add?
So, I mean, if I want to be an asshole, they are currently
5 games.
5 games back, 12 games back in the loss column from number 8, 11 games back. But how close are they from being they like when you look at, so let's boil it down to what is their core, the players that are, I'm not saying everyone's untouchable, but like these are the players they're actively looking to keep. I don't want to put him in here, and I know he's banged up, but I think he's just important when it comes to like maximizing Quickley, Jakob Poeltl, Quickley, RJ Barrett, Barnes, and I'm throwing Grady Dick in there. That dude is on a heater, and he is doing real stuff as a shooter, and he's shown some of the ability to attack some closeouts. Just ask Moses Moody. So I have those 5 guys. And like, could I see them bringing back Bruce Brown or Gary Trent Jr. depending on like, and they have Kelly Olynyk. They could still get to, I think, like 28 or 29 million in cap space if they get rid of everybody. They might just decide like, let's bring back GTJ. Let's bring back Bruce Brown. I honestly do think as currently constructed, they have like 7 to 8 really good players. Yeah. And they could be a top 8 team if everybody stays healthy. Now, their need is very complicated because I think you could make a case for this was the team that, remember Project 6-9? It does feel like they could use a bigger forward because like Scottie Barnes is there. RJ Barrett has nice size, but he's not a bigger forward. And then it's, you have Kelly Olynyk and Jakob Poeltl. Like, so it feels like I think a bigger forward is my answer, but I could also make a case for, well, do you want another floor general type? Because that's not really Immanuel Quickley. At that point, then though, are you starting Immanuel Quickley? So it's like, can you shift him down, to the Gary Trent Jr. spot, or up, let's say, to the Gary Trent Jr. spot, and then get more of like an actual floor general to pair with Scottie Barnes? Like, I could make a case for that, or I could say like Olynyk and Poeltl are nice, but I would like someone who's functionally just better than both of those guys, and maybe does a little bit of everything that they provide. Where it's, can we get a floor spacing rim protector or a floor spacer who could pass, or maybe just someone who's not afraid to shoot free throws or can shoot them at a real clip other than Jakob Poeltl. But I think the answer is kind of like a bigger forward or another wing type.
Do you think, because I kind of feel this way, that they're sort of committed to some degree to Quickley being the point guard, assuming you're going to have to pay him $25 million a year potentially? Like, the numbers, the range has been between 17 was maybe, or 18 what the Knicks offered that he didn't like, and he wanted 27 or something. Like, I wonder if trading for Quickley came with the understanding, which I think it did, that they're going to sign, they're going to extend.
I hope it did. Otherwise, that changes
the sort of had to. Trade. Yeah. So like, if then their need is a true floor general, like, Quickley, I don't love Quickley in tandem with another small guard. Like, I think he sort of has to be that spot, right, to justify the cost, or because that's a tough look if he's off the bench, isn't it?
No, I was saying that, can you shift him to the 2, have the 1? You're saying you just don't want him playing with another guard.
I don't know. I would defer to you because you've seen so much more of Quickley than I have. How do you feel about him as a 2 if you've got, say, like a conventionally sized point guard next to him?
He's just, the way he played with the Knicks, and I think some people think his defense is overrated, and maybe on the ball it's overrated, but in terms of screen navigation and
he's a good defender.
Yeah. So I'd be okay with it, but it's like, where are you getting that name? And if you're drafting him, that's a weird. And so I also, when you were talking, it made me think of, they might just believe that Quickley, RJ, Scottie, and then even Pirtle, just in this Darko Rajakovic offense, like your playmaking is done.
There's
And so,
enough.
yeah, we need to futz and fiddle with the backup stuff for sure.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's a fair when you look at the pass percentage of both Quickley and RJ Barrett on their drives in Toronto versus New York, they have skyrocketed just because of the way that the Toronto's offense is
There's
run.
space for one.
Yeah, and there's space. So I'm with you though that you probably made the assumption then in Darko Rajakovic's offense, he is starting at the 1, and it's him and Barnes, which is probably a reasonable gamble to make, or at least an assumption to make. What this sort of touches on though, because they're committed to paying quickly and Barrett's on his second deal and you have Olynyk, you extended him, you paid Pirtle. Where do you land on the whole, like, do you want the pick to San Antonio to convey this year? Is it better to get that guy, have it as a trade asset or someone to develop immediately? I see the merits to both. I've always been team get this fucker to convey because I want my pick commitments done. And so I can figure out how to move on from here. But you could say they're probably going to be better next year. So you'd be sending a lower pick in what might be a better draft, but it's a lower pick.
I think I like the idea. It's a risk, right? Because you're not sure you're going to get inside that top 6 and keep it. And everybody says this draft sucks. So like, I don't know how valuable that is anyway. But I think if you believe, and I think Toronto probably should think this, and this is going back to the question, like how close are they to the top 8? Like they're going to be better next year. They have to be better next year. And so I think I kind of like the gamble of like, let's pack it in. Let's try to keep this pick. And then the one we convey next year, let's hope it's like 21 or something, something like that. Let's hope that's how it works out. But I think I typically agree with you that like, we got to get these stupid encumbrances like off because it's just it's hamstrings so much. I think in this case, I might be willing to gamble and try to keep this pick and then hope that the one you give up is shitty next year.
Okay. And look, at this point, the decision might just be made for them because we don't know Scottie Barnes. And the half-court offense has been all sorts of fucked up ever since the Siakam trade.
I think the Barnes injury is the thing that makes me, it's like, well, what are we doing anyway? Like, we're not going to learn anything about this team really now. So you might as well just that
is like DJ Carton erasure, and I won't stand for it. So
let's see. There's another one here from Jason.
Well, I did want to very quickly. Do you have like a preference on what is the archetype of player that if you had to boil it down to one that they need?
If Quickley,
we just say Mikal Bridges and move on, or is it
right? Isn't it always OG? It's like an OG Anunoby type, maybe like a Siakam type. Thaddeus Young, is he still available? Can we do that? Delano Banton. I think someone just with some size. No, I think I hadn't really thought of it this way, but I think you're right that if Barnes is going to be your guy, which I think justifiably the Raptors believe that, and you have Quickley. And a little bit with Barrett, like you probably do have enough playmaking. So like a true point guard may not be that big of a need. So just, the classic, the big wing, like the Project 6'9", like 2.0, like just, but let's not go nuts this time. Let's just get like one or two of them. Something like that makes more sense to me. But I also like Olynyk and Pirtle. Like, it's easy to say, let's get a floor spacer who can defend the rim and switch or whatever. But like there's 5 of those guys.
I kind of, the idea, and I want to see more of it, but of having, if you could get that wing type then and play Olynyk with Barnes and that wing type to where the
5 out.
It's 5 out. And then it's like, okay, Barnes and that wing guy, like the rotations they're going to give you either low or around the basket will offset maybe a lot of Kelly Olynyk's defensive deficiencies.
Yeah.
And just his passing is like, he's not the same type of playmaker as Jakob Poeltl, but he's more of like a full, like floor playmaker. Like, let's put the ball. And so the stuff he was doing in Utah specifically. So yeah.
Olynyk
I'm just agreeing with my own point.
Olynyk is like one of those, you have to watch him enough, but like he's an aggressive, like creative passer. Well, he'll be like on the wing, 30 feet from the basket and like whip a bounce pass like diagonally across the floor. Like he's that kind of passer, which is really valuable. So yeah, I didn't even include him in the like playmaking by committee thing for Toronto. So he's another guy there. Jason Hindle asked, are you at all considering structuring your cap/personnel strategy to try to bring home Shea as a free agent in 3 years? Can I answer this? No, you're not. Nobody should be thinking 3 years out ahead, but go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, and also just the state of free agency is just these players either don't reach it because they're signing extensions, and like Shea is going to be a super max eligible guy. Like
Right.
that's going to be something that happens. And the other thing is just like, even if they're not leaving in free agency, they're leaving via trade. And so if you want to plan around this way, and I wouldn't do it, do you keep an open mind and want Shea Gilgeous-Alexander on your team? Fuck yeah. Of course you do. Like everybody is. You should just be you should just be trying to build the best team as possible so that you could then have the trade assets to go out and acquire Shea or the star that becomes available. But no, we're not in and the only thing I'll say is, does this change at all? And 3 years is far enough in. So if you really believe it's going to change and these players are going to start leaving in free agency, have that conversation. Like, you can't be like, Scottie Barnes is good now. Like, you can't just be, and structuring your books, by the way, is sort of a heavy lift because you have Immanuel Quickley just about to sign his new deal. RJ's deal kind of aligns with it. I guess Pirtle's does as well. So you're just kind of saying, we're going to have everyone from here on out that we sign aside from Scottie Barnes is temporary. That's a lot of churn for 3 years.
I think one of the things that has really changed both in the way I look at the league, and I think how the league operates now, is like, you'd hear all the time, like, well, they're really gearing up for cap space in like 2019. That's going to be a big, it's like 2014 or whatever is when this is being said. It's like, I think everybody understands now, like, you can think about next year, maybe. That's it. You can't, like, that is where your future planning, you need a hard cutoff at like 13 months from now. Like, you can't go farther out than that because things change too fast. It doesn't work. You can't do it.
So I started covering the league in 2011. And I bet you if I started now, and I think we kind of see it with who's the best in the business, I wouldn't know nearly as much about the salary cap and the CBA now if I started covering the league as I did in 2011, because like that was post decision, right? And that's what everyone was doing. And so you needed to know.
Yes.
Like, we know that the league, a lot of the big media companies, including our own, skew towards transactional coverage because it works. But because that works, like, that's why I know so much about the CBA, because I needed to. And now I feel like to cover this league, you don't need to know as much about it because it's just not, there are still the intricacies there, but like we even kind of saw it at this year's trade deadline. Where it's just like, all right, like there's just not as like much creative like voodoo going on. And like the Sixers are the only team that is actively, and maybe Detroit a little, is like actively planning like to use their cap space, it feels like, or structured. The Sixers are the only team I feel like actively went out of their way to structure their books this way.
Well, what's the last one to really do that? And then is it the Nets when they got Durant and Kyrie? Is that like the last one?
Are you counting the Rockets getting almost Brook Lopez?
I almost counting. No, that's different. Yeah, no, it doesn't happen anymore. All right, we got to get to the Wizards. I think it's your turn to ask. Oh, boy, I just saw the question.
Shout out to anyone who gave us questions on the Wizards, by the way. Appreciate both of you. Well, one wasn't just about the Wizards, but I looped it here. So HP Burgie, what is the best way out of the Jordan Poole experience? He has two questions. They have two questions. Let's start with that. Grant, here's my follow-up question. Today, would you trade Shea Gilgeous-Alexander for Jordan Poole?
I need to go back and look. Did I ever actually say that? Did I ever actually rank him above? I'll wear it. I'll wear it as a bit. But
friend of the podcast, Jacob Bourne, will search it in messages. I asked him about it probably the same day I asked you about it. He said no. And I believe that's how it went down. And I then responded by saying, Grant's on the fence too.
I wonder if this must have been like Poole must have just had 40 and made like 13 incredible layups or something several years ago.
Still egregious to think that way, though.
The way, of course, the best way out of the Jordan Poole experience is to have a teammate punch him, sabotage a season, and then you trade him for Chris Paul's expiring contract. That's the only way. No, like the Jordan Poole experience is real sad right now. Like he's clearly not having any fun. He's on a terrible team. He's making the team worse. It's bad.
Can I interject too? I hate when we like assign player like characteristic, or not player, like human value based off what they're doing on the court or their contract. And so it's Jordan Poole. I'm being hyperbolic. He sucks at basketball, so he's a terrible human being. Like, let's just make fun of him to no end. And where it's like, I don't really know him from Adam as a human being. Did he deserve to get punched by Draymond? I have no idea. So Right. But like the best way out of the Jordan Poole experience is to just wait 2 more years and then he's an expiring contract. Because
Right.
right now you would need to give up something to get off him.
Yeah, no, there is no way out now because this is as low as his value hopefully is ever going to be, right? Like it's not going to get worse. So grit your teeth and just be glad that what's happening with the Jordan Poole experience is fast tracking the rebuild in Washington because it's making your draft picks better, and it might happen next year. So yeah, it's a bummer. I really thought he was just going to score in buckets, like he just score a ton and be like inefficient, but nothing like this. This is just
People were betting on him to lead the league in scoring because they
it was
thought
not
that
a long odds bet. Like hell yes, I mean he could get you 30. Like why couldn't he get you 30? I mean that's not going to lead the league obviously because guys are 33, 34, but he could get you 30 on like what, like a 43. 36, 90 shooting split. Like that's not out. That wasn't out of the realm of possibility. It is now. That's not happening.
The second part of this question from HB Burgie, what is the proper path to start the rebuild? What players on the roster are actually worth keeping? I would say the proper way to start the rebuild is what the Wizards did.
They're on it.
And they burned it down. And it was the circumstances where Bradley Beal, the no trade clause, they didn't let that stop them. Whether you like what they got for Kristaps, they didn't let that stop them. And so they burned it down. That's the right way to start the rebuild.
And like, I think we even thought it was smart to like, well, okay, the market for Kuzma is not great at the deadline. All right.
We don't care. Declining. And his salary's declining.
I think I struggle to come up with a move that the Wizards have made post Poole, because I think that was clearly a mistake that in the rebuild that like I didn't like. I mean, they've been, it sucks. Like this is going to be painful. They're going to be bad for a long time, but this is the way out. Like this is the only way out, and they're doing it.
Now, when you look at players worth keeping, if I was to assign core value to where, and I don't want to use the word untouchable, but it's like you're planning on having this player for multiple years. I think the honest answer is it's only Bilal Coulibaly right now. I'm willing, because I'm me, to put Denny Avdia into that equation.
Goddamn better put Denny Avdia in there.
After that, there's no one that I feel like I can't get there with Corey Kispert. No. There's no one else. I think what you could say, though, and the Spurs ran into this issue, not so much because Wemby just, I mean, they still kind of have this issue to the effect. There is value, and I think people confuse this. There is value in having players who don't align with your timeline, but they simplify, streamline, or optimize the development of others. And most of the time, I think that can happen. Do you have someone who is super low usage, but an excellent defender so that they can have these lifts? Or the more important answer for me is someone to organize your offense if you don't have that prospect on the roster. And so if I were the Wizards, especially because I didn't trade him, I'm absolutely looking at bringing Tyus Jones back just to have someone who can manage the game, make life a little bit easier on the opportunities for Denny Avdia or on the opportunities that Bilal Coulibaly still is not getting on the ball. And then like as you mentioned with Kuzma, no, you're not keeping him, but it's not the end of the world if you don't move him this offseason. But my actual answer to this question is there are only two players that I view as potentially part of the long-term core, Denny Avdia and Bilal Coulibaly. And if you're actively trying to bring players back and say, well, I'd rather they didn't trade him. Yes, I know Marvin Bagley's all of a sudden protecting the basket. Congratulations to him. He's not on this list. It'd be Tyus Jones for me, just because functionally I think that has value that can trickle down to everybody else's job.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think it's just those two guys, and Kuzma and Tyus Jones for different reasons. Kuzma's not someone I think you want. He's like, Kuzma's kind of like, he's a value. He has positive trade value that you're going to get something from, but he's like kind of, he's not helping the other guys get better like the way Tyus Jones is. So he's not that kind of guy. But yeah, to your point, there's 4 total, but that's it. I mean, I don't see anybody else here. Like, I mean, Johnny Davis is a massive miss. Like they just are not going to get anything out of him. Poole is been detrimental. Like there's just not, and there's not really, like, quietly, there's not a lot of young guys on this. Like Patrick Baldwin Jr. is not someone that I think has mounted to much. I'm just looking at their young guys. Ryan Rollins is out of the league right now because of shoplifting allegations, which that's a wild.
No, didn't the team sign him? Did he land with?
Oh, I don't know. I didn't see that he got picked up.
Yeah, I thought, I mean, that's neither here nor there at this point. That has nothing to do with the Wizards. Yeah, he got picked up by the Bucks.
Okay.
So there must not be targets in the Wisconsin area.
Keep him out of Minnesota.
So this final question to wrap up what is, by the way, if anyone hasn't guessed by now, this is going to be split into two parts as just the East, and we'll do the West next week because it's me. We should have known, Grant. Like we should have
I
known.
think deep down we did. I think we
We
knew.
knew after the Nets.
Yep.
To our credit. So everything Blacks says, and he left the Rockets off of this list on purpose because he thinks they'd be the easy answer. I probably agree. Of the 6 teams that are clearly in rebuild mode, Spurs, Blazers, Hornets, Pistons, Wizards, and Raptors, which team do you believe A, makes the playoffs first, the real playoffs, not a play-in appearance, and B, wins a playoff series first? And he went this route because he said ranking in terms of upside was too easy because it's just the Spurs
Yeah.
with Wemby.
Well, maybe let's go backwards. I think just from who's farthest away, Washington, Detroit, I think we kick out. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs or win a series first. I think the Blazers feel a long way away. So you've got the Spurs, the Hornets, and the Raptors as your candidates for who's going to be a top. So real playoffs is like top 6.
Top 6.
Man,
The West is tough, and that factors in.
yeah.
Which is why I probably would have booted the Blazers before the Pistons. Like they could do some weird stuff this offseason and just like end up in the top.
They could go I mean the Blazers feel like they could go either way. I'm gonna go. I mean the Raptors are like cheating because they're technically the closest, and you have a rough idea of what that team's gonna look like next year. I think it probably should be the Raptors.
Just that's not cheating if they were on the list.
Well, I mean, it's the easy answer.
I agree with you. Now, my question to you would be, which team is more likely to win a playoff series first, Hornets or Spurs?
Man, I'd probably go
Things
Spurs.
are changing in Charlotte, but I do think the Spurs just have a better baseline where there's Wemby, there's Devin Vassell, there's like Trey Jones just being there, there's Jeremy Sohan, and they feel more likely because of Wemby just being so good. If they go out and get Trae Young this offseason, they might make a win now trade, whereas Charlotte still needs to do that. But like they're in the infancy of competence.
Yeah.
So it's like they're not gonna do that.
Yeah. I think Charlotte, new ownership, like Charlotte could be like, everybody's gone except LaMelo and Miller. We just talked about that, or we talked about that 2 hours ago when we did the Hornets. The Spurs are like, the Spurs cannot make any more let's get worse moves. Like your right to do that is stripped when you have Victor Wembanyama. So now it's just we get better immediately and for as long as we possibly can. So yeah, probably the Spurs to win it. I think win a playoff series. Although they feel it ain't happening next year, I don't think. We're in a couple years.
And it's just like look at Denver's not going anywhere. OKC's not going anywhere. Minnesota, we make jokes about the taxes, but I'd be shocked if they don't run back their top 5 next year. They're not going to go anywhere. I mean, like
Dallas, Houston, Golden State, like the Lakers aren't going to just pack it in. Like the Clippers are right. Like there's what do we just mention? 8 teams already. So I guess
I think the answer, I mean, first of all, it's mostly East teams on this, but I think the answer has to be an East team, and the Raptors are the right one. Mm-hmm. I think there's probably a debate between the Hornets and Pistons though for that second. Like this,
I kind of like the Hornets.
I'm that high. You know what it is? I'm that high on Cade. But when you're looking at the process by which they've got here, but I'm also just like Charlotte, everything is so new. Like you have the new front office executive. Will Steve Clifford still be coaching? Is LaMelo going to be healthy? So there's just like a lot of variables there.
Yeah. That's a good question though.
Stat padding time. We're going to do not as much guess of players this time around, and it won't be our usual stat padding either because we've gone for so long, 2.5 hours and counting. And this is a 2-part pod, but still. Grant, you have a couple of guess of players for me, rumor has it.
I certainly do. These are from Mike Hernishin. I'm not going to give you any prompts. I'm just going to begin with clue number 1. And thanks, Mike. I was picked 6th overall in the 2004 draft, sandwiched between all-stars Devin Harris and Luol Deng. So are you in the
pick
number 6 in 04?
Between Luol Deng and who?
Devin Harris.
I got nothing.
Clue number 2. It was this draft that encouraged my team about our future as they picked my potential future running mate at number 17. It's not going to help you.
No.
Clue number 3. I ranked 3rd among rookies in 04-05 in double-doubles. Only Dwight Howard and Emeka Okafor were ahead of me.
Who's an 04 big? You're going to have to keep going.
All right. Clue 4. Unfortunately, there was a clear ceiling on my NBA potential with the team that drafted me as I fell into a sixth man role after my rookie year.
It's not helping me.
No. Number 5, after my rookie contract ran out, I signed overseas with Olympiacos. Twist. Because due to the tax breaks, my 3-year, $20 million contract was the equivalent of a $33 million NBA contract. I also received a Nike shoe deal as part of this contract. I did not know this.
I clearly don't know it either.
All right. Number 6, in 2010, my contract rights were traded to the Suns, so he's back in the league, for a 2012 second round pick. I then signed a 5-year deal with Phoenix, but I didn't stay long as I was amnestied to make room for Luis Scola.
Oh man, I should know this now, shouldn't I? Who did Phoenix amnesty?
Man, that's that's the clue that if you were gonna get the other ones is like you'd really have to remember that draft.
That wasn't. Yeah.
Okay. Clue 7. I then signed with the Nets, but was waived after 3 months and 14 games. I signed in 2013 with New Orleans, but only played 4 games and 24 total minutes with the Hornets before going overseas again to become an Australian League superstar, winning the league scoring title in 2015 and being an all NBL, I think Mike means to say first team player. I did not know this either.
Tasanya Diop? Like, I'm just gonna throw out random names now.
No.
I got nothing.
I'm trying to think of what clues I would give. I'll give you clue. You're probably gonna before I give you clue 8. A clue. What I would say is I had just like a trash jumper form, like just like one of the wonkiest jumper forms ever. I think this guy went to Stanford. I could be wrong about that. What else could I say without giving it away? I'll get. Or if you're ready for this, is your 8th and final clue, but it's pretty on the nose. I'm perhaps better known as being the Hawks' second Josh behind Josh Smith and my afro.
Oh my God, Josh Childress.
That's right. That's right. Now I want to make sure that his jumper was really funky. Like he had like Kevin Martin looking form, but it didn't go in. But I'm not sure if I'm right about that.
Wow,
All
that
right,
was a tough one. I did
you
not
got
remember the Suns amnestied him.
no. That was the first clue. Like I said, that like just like sparked a little something because I didn't remember the Olympiacos thing. I didn't remember the Nike shoe. I didn't remember the NBL. All right, second one here from Mike. I went undrafted in 1996 before playing my first professional season in Italy. Guessing you're not going to get that one.
No.
Number 2, I signed during the 96-97 season with the then Washington Bullets, where I would stay until 1999.
Nothing.
In the 99 offseason, I was traded by the Bullets to Orlando for Isaac Austin. It was during the 99-2000 season that I started getting comfortable in the NBA. That wasn't enough for me to stay long-term, however, as myself and Chucky Atkins were traded as part of the sign and trade compensation for Grant Hill.
I don't not remember who was in that trade.
Okay, but you know where this player is now, like because Grant Hill came from Detroit, so this guy's in Detroit. Yeah. In my first season with the Pistons, I averaged over 2 blocks a game. The next season, I averaged 3.5 blocks per game. This winning my first of 4 Defensive Player of the Year.
Oh, Ben Wallace.
That's clue 4. What does clue 5 have? And then, it gets even more. Clue 5 was I low-key started the fracas that led to the malice in the palace by shoving around our test. Clue 6, after I left the Pistons for the Bulls, I was not allowed to wear my signature headband because of a very stupid rule the team had. I forgot about this. Do you remember this? The headband thing?
Yeah.
Reason they stopped it. Got to maintain my glorious fro somehow. 2 fros. Mike comes with themes. 2 guys known for their afros. Number 7, I was a 4-time All-Star, 5-time All-NBA, 6-time All-Defense, 4-time DPOY, and my number has been retired by the Pistons. Ben Wallace, you got it. This reminds me of the time that this is probably 10 years ago, where for BR, I don't know if I pitched it or it was assigned, but the idea was like, must you have a top 10 player to win an NBA championship? And those Pistons teams were like, I mean, like Chauncey Billups, like Rip Hamilton, Tayshaun Prince, Rasheed Wallace. Like, there's no. Then I was like, can I make the argument that Ben Wallace was in fact a top 10 player in terms of value during those years? I think it was like a pretty big stretch, but he was close. He was like he was their best player, I think.
I respect the hustle.
Thank you. Good job by you. 2 for 2. Good job.
So, I mean, I got it on the last clue on the first one. That
was a hard one though. Like he was giving you nothing the first like 3 or 4.
I have 2 for you. I'm going to punt on Mike has a great list, but like I said, we're pressed for time tonight. We have 1 from Rubik's Gal and then 1 from B Rich. So I'll start with Rubik's Gal.
Sure.
Clue number 1. I'm the first player in the shot clock era to have scored 20 plus points without a single miss, while also pulling down 15 plus rebounds in less than 30 minutes, achieving the feat against Dallas in 24 minutes. And that is not the only time I finished a game with a field goal percentage of 100.
Man, I'm not. So all I know is we're in the shot clock era.
And he had a game with 20 plus points without a single miss and 15 plus rebounds in just 24 minutes.
So this guy's not playing a lot, is making a lot of dunks. All right, I couldn't even. DeAndre Jordan. Like I got nothing.
Clue 2. Early on in my career, I was perceived as a misfit in the era of pace and space, a bruising big who couldn't space the floor. In a sense, that was and is true. Over my career, more than 94% of my shot attempts have come from within 10 feet. 60% of my shot attempts are within a restricted area. I've only attempted 12 threes in my NBA career, and 3 of them were end of the quarter heaves.
I know we got like a plotting big guy here. All right, I don't know. What's the next clue?
Clue 3 of 8, by the way.
Okay.
For the first half of my career, I was used in short spurts primarily to body up other giant centers like Jokic and Embiid. But my second coach quickly recognized that I was nigh unstoppable on the pick and roll. Nearly 75% of my made field goals are assisted. I have been shooting better than 70% at the rim, and I'm an excellent offensive rebounder off my own misses.
Is this Boban?
No.
Oh, I don't know what I think about your tone. I feel like I'm close.
Did Boban ever score 20 plus points out of 15 rebounds in the same game?
Clearly not. But I'm trying to think who you would throw at. Like, what low minute big guy would you throw at Embiid? Jokic or Embiid were the names?
Correct.
And just scores 70%, gets his own misses all the time. Oh man, I feel like I should at least hazard like one more big guy guess. Who's just like enormous that Alex Len?
Incorrect.
Okay, go ahead. I don't know.
What can I do at the other end of the court? According to Second Spectrum, this season I hold scores to 48.7% at the rim. Out of 87 players who defend at least 3.5 shots per game, only Utah Jazz center Walker Kessler holds scores to a lower percentage than me.
This season, okay, so we're right now. Man, who's like a low minute rim protector guy?
I will say I think you're getting a little hung up on the low minutes thing.
Okay.
So broaden your horizons.
All right. Is it Mitchell Robinson?
That is incorrect.
I just got to keep naming a bunch of big guys.
You could do that.
Well, I mean, but that's not in the spirit of the game. All right, what am I on, clue 5?
Yeah, clue 5 is coming up.
Okay,
I'm surprisingly mobile for a 7-footer, 240-pound European big man. While I can switch and hold my own against wings in a pinch, I am best employed in drop coverage.
Pirtle?
Incorrect.
Oh, I felt pretty good about
Pirtle European?
Yeah, where's Pirtle from? I forget. He's from Europe.
Yeah, all right. Vienna, Austria.
There you go.
So you knew that, and I did not.
Kudos to European big. I mean, there's only so many. Like, should I just?
I think you're gonna get it after this next clue. Actually,
okay. Wait, is this like? I feel like I know that he's. It would be very sneaky to use this guy, but I'm pretty sure his rim protection numbers aren't that. It's not Sabonis, no, because his rim protection numbers are terrible.
Yeah.
How many are all right? I don't want to just keep guessing randomly. So what's the next clue?
Clue 6. At a salary of slightly less than $11 million a year, I'm the lowest paid member of my team's starting 5 this season.
11 million a year, European center. Let me just go. It's just going to be a lot of dead silence while I mentally scroll through a bunch of teams thinking of a European starting center. I want to look at this is how I solve problems. I'm going to look at the standings. Let's see. Cleveland, Indy, Chicago, Atlanta, Toronto. I'm just looking down the list of teams trying to figure out what starting center makes $11 million. Oh, Zubats.
That is correct.
Okay.
The final 2 clues: I'm one of 11 players to be selected in the NBA draft from the Serbian club and Adriatic League powerhouse Mega Basket. Hat tip to my mega coach Dejan Milojevic. May he rest in peace. Clue 8. I'm currently in my 8th season on my second NBA team. My time with the first team was spent watching from the bench as legendary centers such as Timofey Mozgov, a nearly retired Tyson Chandler, and JaVale McGee took up most of the playing time. Please do JaVale McGee and Shaq's voice. I can't even attempt a Shaq voice. Could have also gone. This would have given it away if you didn't get it. I was going to say I was traded for Mike Muscala.
We have to stop spending so much time talking to each other because I was like, wasn't it I was thinking, I was like, who did the Lakers trade him for? Was it Muscala? Yeah, that's scary that was the next thought. Okay, we got there.
Are you ready to get into the mind of a psychopath?
I am prepared to get into the mind of a psychopath right now.
Clue number 1. I was a lottery pick in 1999 and went on to have a 17-year career spanning 9 teams.
Elton Brand.
Incorrect.
Damn it. Okay.
Clue 2. In my 3rd season, I led the league in assists per game while starting 81 games.
Andre Miller.
Correct. Nice job. The clue 3 was an Iron Man in 2005, 2006. I started all 82 games for the 3rd consecutive season. And yep, you guessed it. I was teammates with Greg Buckner. In 2006, I was traded along with Joe Smith and 2 first-round picks for Allen Iverson.
Ooh.
That was clue 4. Clue 5. I scored my career high 52 points at age 33 for the Trailblazers while taking and making 1 3-pointer. Not known for my long-range shooting. I averaged 21.7% from deep for my career. And finally, my senior year in college, I dropped just the 4th triple-double in the NCAA tournament history and blew out the Mike Bibby, Miles Simon, and Jason Terry-led Arizona Wildcats in the Elite 8. I'm either the best or second best NBA player out of the University of Utah, depending on how you feel about Tom Chambers. Do you remember that Andre Miller 50-point game?
No, that blew me away. How the hell did he score 52?
You need to go back and watch. I don't think I watched it live. I've watched the highlights from that. I think I might have had to do like an anniversary post for it on BR at one point or something. It was freaking nuts. I don't know that anyone could score 50 plus points the way that he did in that game.
That guy, the very first thing I think of with Andre Miller is he had the best fake timeout call. He would do it all the time. Like players like get over the timeline and they go up to the ref and like look at, and pretend to pick the ball up. He would fake it and then just drive to the basket and get a layup. And then they call a timeout the next possession down. I must have done it 10 times in his career.
He kind of feels like, and granted, this first player is faster, but like sort of that Jose Alvarado and Tyus Jones had a baby.
And like he had to wear ankle weights to run around the court.
Right.
The third element there.
Yeah. Because you got that one so quickly, how do you feel about doing one from Mike?
I'd love to.
Clue 1. I was drafted by the Clippers straight out of high school.
Oh. This shouldn't be that hard.
I feel like you could get this one, which is why I said maybe we should do it.
Yeah, straight out of high school for the Clippers. Was Brandon Boston out of high school?
I mean, high school players can't be drafted in the current day and age, right? So, no.
He had something weird. Yeah, like maybe he went to G League or something. All right.
That's not as bad as me guessing Smush Parker when we were talking about centers.
Pretty bad. They govern drafting, apparently. A Clippers guy draft. Oh, Darius Miles.
Correct. After the first clue. Wow. There were 7 clues.
Let's hear them because Bill's clues were great for Andre Miller. I learned a lot. So what did we got for this one?
Known as a high flyer, I was the only reason people watched the Clippers in the early 2000s. Clue 3, I was then moved to the Cavs for Andre Miller. That's funny.
Wow.
During the time when the Cavs had very boring light blue and black jerseys in the pre-LeBron era. Clue 4, speaking of LeBron, when the Cavs are going to draft LeBron, I was quoted as saying, if he comes, he can hop on our bandwagon and maybe he can do something with us. Oops, he took my starting job from me before I was traded to Portland for Ruben Buchame. I don't want to fuck up Ruben Boom Boom.
Oh, Boomche Boomche. That's how I remember that guy.
What is it? Boomche
It's
Boomche?
like Boomche Boomche, yeah.
I'm going to need these when they're like this to be in there phonetically from now on, everybody. Thank you very much. Clue 5, I shredded my knee with the Blazers and was never the same player. Clue 6, I ended my career with the Grizzlies and sadly declared bankruptcy in September 2016 before turning my fortunes around. Clue 7, I now host a podcast with my best friend from my Clippers days. Do you know who his best friend is?
Oh, I was going to say, if you don't mention Quentin Richardson at some point, that's an oversight on this clue. Yeah, those guys are joined at the hip for the Clippers for sure.
I feel like you need to do this other one now.
All right.
Clue 1, I was one of the early prep to pro draft picks in the mid to late 1990s. This is from Mike H, by the way.
One of the early prep to pros in the 90s. What's that guy? I can never remember the guy's name from the Hawks. DeMar Johnson.
That is incorrect.
Okay.
Nice job remembering the name from the Hawks, though.
Thank you.
Clue 2, I had a hard time getting playing time with several respected veterans ahead of me in the rotation to start my career, one of which is a Hall of Famer.
Ooh, but we don't know the team yet, right?
No, that would give it away.
Oh, prep to pro, if then the team would give it away. All right, what's the next one?
Clue 3, this went on for my first 3 years in the league, but I was rewarded with a 4-year, $24 million contract anyway.
This feels like Jermaine O'Neal.
That's because it is Jermaine O'Neal. Correct. You just killed it. There were 8 clues. Clue 4, unfortunately, the front office got impatient with the team, wanted to win now, and threw everything at the wall in a series of moves that left the team with essentially 8 starters, and I was the 9th guy. So I was traded for Dale Davis, a move in which I became a starter on my new team, and Davis ultimately got buried on the bench. Clue 5, I was the perfect running man for my future Hall of Fame running mate, as I could dominate the post and he could drain threes like there was no tomorrow. And by my second season with my new team, I was the face of the franchise. In my 3rd season, this is Clue 6, with this team, we had the best record in the league, but didn't win the title. Clue 7, God damn it, Ron Artest, the Malice at the Palace got me a massive suspension, 25 games. Clue 8, after Malice, I battled injuries for years, ultimately moving on to the Raptors, Heat, Celtics, Suns, and Warriors. Man, prime Jermaine O'Neal. I know his peak wasn't that long. Holy fuck, man.
He was really good. He was really good. He was one of the biggest losers out of the 2 Malice in the Palace references, by the way, because like that team was really good. That Pacers.
He's one of those guys too that if he entered the league today,
he'd
probably be an even better fit.
Yeah, I mean, he super athletic. Like I remember him on the Warriors, believe it or not. Like, and Mark Jackson would throw him the ball in the post like a lot, and he was washed. And like, but he still could like get a bucket occasionally, even though he couldn't really move. Yeah, he would have come in today and been like he would have shot threes. He would have been really good.
That was great. Do you want to take us out of here? Thank you everybody for the guest of players as always. Nicole Che, I did not forget about yours. I know you messaged me. It is one. We're gonna have to do something with it, Grant, because he's from not the NBA. So he was drafted by the NBA, but I don't think he ever played in the NBA. This might be a stretch, but this dude deserves a shout out. He was my favorite player from the region when I was growing up. Oh no, he played in the NBA.
Do you know the name?
I know now that I'm looking at it, I know the name, but I don't think you're not gonna get him.
Okay, that's fair.
I could do it right now if you just want to.
I kind of want to now.
Okay. All right, Nicole Shea, here it comes. I was the 51st pick in the 1995 NBA draft by the Sacramento Kings.
Ooh.
Oh no, he chose never to play in the NBA. I'm already ruining a clue. I don't think you're gonna get this.
We've started now. We may as well. I don't know.
Okay, clue 2. A 3-time EuroLeague champion. During 2 of my EuroLeague runs, I was the MVP at the Final Four. I won national titles in the Spanish ACB League, Italian A League, and the Greek Basket League. Holy shit.
Man. And so you said the mid 90s, like 95, the Kings
95 when he was drafted.
All right. Yeah, I don't got it.
Clue 3. Despite all my success in Europe, I chose never to play in the NBA. Oh my God. I'm dying.
And this is a name you know. Like
I've heard of the name,
Okay.
which is why I thought he didn't play in the NBA. But then I thought I read one that he did, but I was wrong.
And
So clearly I
don't
didn't know.
we don't have the nationality of this player yet.
Well, you're about to get him.
Okay, I would like to have that, please.
Clue 4, with the Yugoslavian national team, I won 3 Eurobaskets and 2 World Cups. I was the MVP of the 1998 World Cup.
Oh man. Who was this? Yugoslav. I think oh damn it. Okay, what's the next clue? It's right
Clue
there.
5. After my playing career, I was a general manager of Virtus Roma in Italy, the vice president of the Basketball Federation of Serbia, the president of the Competition Commission in FIBA Europe, and now I am the current president of the Euro League. I definitely did not know that.
No, I don't think I'm going to get it. How many more clues do I have?
1.
Okay, let's hear it.
Clue 6. One of the original point forwards, a lot of people from the XU countries would say Luca plays like me. Some of my nicknames include White Magic, Body Bond, and Mr. MVP.
Body Bond?
Yeah.
I'm not going to get it. I really think I'm going to know the name. Okay, who is it?
I am Dejan Badaroga.
You know what? I did not know that name. I could have played it off and lied and said, "Oh, I had it." I was never going to get that.
Nicole Che closed with a fun fact about him. A rock band wrote a song called Sex, Droga, Badaroga, which is basically sex, drugs, Badaroga. He's part of the basketball folklore in the Balkans.
Okay.
Yo, shout out to the people that are just like following multiple basketball leagues. And I'm just like, I don't even follow college. Like,
no, forget it. Yeah. You can barely follow one. I thought Brandon Boston was drafted out of high school.
Maybe I'm just going to confirm that he wasn't, that there wasn't some like exception made for Brandon Boston and you were really just ahead of the curve.
I think maybe he was just a really good high school player that like was shit in his college season.
And he went to Kentucky.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Maybe that's what it was. Man. All right. Well, we've expanded into EuroLeague legends on Guess a Player. We're almost 3 hours into this podcast. It is officially time to call it. Thank you for everyone that participated. Thanks for your questions. We will get to the West next week. We'll maybe do 3 more hours. Who can say? Thanks for the Guess a Players. Please remember, rate, review, subscribe, tell your friends, be involved in the process, get on our Discord if you are interested in merch and or joining our Discord so you can participate like everybody that got a word in this week. The links for that are in the YouTube and podcast description. I think that's going to cover it. We close, as always, with a shout out to the one and only Frank Ntilikina and an apology to Jared Allen.